All right, good morning, Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasevich. This is the meeting after the meeting. So it's my 15 or 20 minutes live here online. Cantante futura leyenda. ¿Cómo estás, caballero? All right. So I'm going to spend about 15 or 20 minutes. I'm going to talk a little bit about today's Carbon County Commissioners meeting. I will also go ahead and talk a little bit about the election, noting that that is Tuesday, 3 November. Polls open at 7 a.m., close at 8. Again, this is Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasevich. If you're just joining me, I just came online for about the next 15 or 20 minutes. This is the virtual meeting after the commissioners meeting. It's just my opportunity to be available here online. If you want to contact me, of course, you can simply put it in the chat, or you can give me a call at 570-503-6780. Any questions you have, and that number is good all the time, not only today or during this period. So feel free to give me a shout, 570-503-6780. So let's go ahead, let's talk a little bit about today's agenda, see if there's anything of significant on there. Got to go back real quick. Body scanner. So up in the prison, obviously, I guess maybe not obviously, but the reality is contraband is always a problem in prisons. That is, guests, visitors, or others bringing in illicit items, contraband, and to help mitigate or reduce the amount of contraband coming into our prison, the prison board has recommended and the commissioners have approved the purchase of a scanner for the Carbon County prison. Hold on just a sec, let me check. Here, door knocking. Well, couldn't have been that important, or they would have stayed or knocked or just opened the door. So I was talking about, the Board of Commissioners have approved a recommendation from the warden and specifically the prison board to purchase a full body scanner. So individuals, visitors coming into the prison, new inmates will have a full body scan done. Not significantly different from what you see at airports. Again, that's just to help to control or reduce, and obviously will never eliminate contraband coming into the prison. But that's one major item on there. The second one we did approve, which was a proposal from O'Brien's Moving to facilitate or provide moving services for temporary relocation of county offices out of 76 Susquehanna up to the Jim Thorpe Area School District office up here on the hill, and also into the courthouse. Right, we've had three entities that have moved already from 76 Susquehanna. We're starting renovations next week. So you had planning and development and workforce moved up into the school district office there at 410 Center Avenue in Jim Thorpe. In addition, you had juvenile probation who moved out of the first floor in 76, and they moved into multiple areas within the courthouse. So simply, we approved a proposal that came in for about $43,000. Now that isn't just those offices. Now we'll also in December, or after the election is certified, the Bureau of Elections will move in December temporarily through about June or July, depending on the renovations complete. We'll be moving up to the school district also. And then once 44 Susquehanna is complete, again in June and July, you'll have kind of a retrograde of all those offices up in the Jim Thorpe Area School District offices back into 76 and to 44. In addition to adult probation, will move from the courthouse 276 Susquehanna. And the Veterans Affairs Office will move from the second floor in the Carbon County Administration or Annex Building down to the first floor in 76 Susquehanna Street. So that was the major agenda items that were discussed today. Again, if you just joining me, this is Chris Lukasevich, Carbon County Commissioner. This is the meeting after the meeting, so that is the virtual meeting after the Commissioners meeting, where I take 15 or 20 minutes, make myself available to the residents of Carbon County, answer any questions you might have on today's agenda. Keep in mind that our agenda is now posted 24 hours prior. The draft agenda for the Commissioners meeting is available online, so you are able to look at that agenda and get a better understanding of what's going to be discussed at the meeting. You of course could pose questions via email the day prior, or just as you might desire, you can attend, and the meetings are and always have been open to the public. We haven't had that many visitors since COVID pandemic started, but again, that is an option to attend the Commissioners meeting and present your concerns, your accommodate, make recommendations to the board as you so desire. A couple things about the election. So again, the election, 3 November. Polls open at 7 a.m., close at 8 p.m. on Tuesday. Oh, well over 10,000 applications for mail-in and absentees. About 3/4 of those have been returned already, so there's a few thousand out there. They may or may not be returned. Individuals may decide not to vote. Those could potentially still be in the mail. We are required, the Bureau of Elections here is required to accept the mail-in and absentees up until Friday at 5 p.m. So you have on the 3rd, you have the election, then Wednesday, right, the 4th, the 5th, and then the 6th, up until 5 p.m. So if individuals are procrastinating and mailed at the last minute, for example, election day, up as long as we receive that by 5 p.m. Friday, regardless if the postmark is legible or not, that has to be received, and that will be tallied as part of the vote count. Some expectations or expectation management for election night when it comes to releasing of the count numbers. The only numbers expected to be released on election night are those numbers from the voting machines. So for those who go to the polls, right, you're scanning your information right into the machine at the polling location. That data after 8 o'clock is all brought back here to 76 Susquehanna. It's brought together, and then once all those numbers are tabulated from all the voting machines, the voting precincts, those numbers we can expect to be released, unless there's some snafu, released election eve. However, the absentees and mail-in ballots, no one should expect any release of those firm numbers before Friday at 5 p.m. So that should be the earliest total release of those mail-ins and absentees. So right now, should simply expect the actual those who voted at the polls number. So you're likely to have maybe 50 to 60% of the total vote available on election, right? We have 46,000 or so eligible voters. We can expect probably 25 to 26,000 voters. We already have 7,000 plus that have come in. That leaves about 18,000, 19,000 votes still forthcoming. So again, that's why I say, you are definitely going to see a trend based upon the numbers of the tabulated counts, but you won't have the totality of the picture truly until at the earliest Friday at 5 p.m. So a lot going on in regards to elections, but please, if you haven't mailed in your ballot, your mail-in ballot yet, please do so. If you want to kind of lean on the side of caution, you can actually bring that mail-in ballot or absentee ballot, drop that off at the drop box at 76 Susquehanna Street. As soon as you go in, you're going to see a big red arrow pointing down. It's going to say mail-in drop box or ballot drop box. You can't miss it. So again, if you want to kind of lean on the side of safety and ensuring that that ballot is received by the Bureau of Elections on time, go ahead and just bring it down to 76 Susquehanna Street. That ballot drop box is available 24/7 in its secured location at 76 Susquehanna Street. Lisa Dart, the Director of Bureau of Elections, wanted me to ensure that I reminded everyone, if you have changed your residence or mailing address after requesting a mail-in ballot, the Postal Service does not forward elections material. So that ballot, you asked it to be delivered 3 or 4 months ago when you did an application for a mail-in ballot to 1122 Boogie Boogie Avenue. However, after you mailed in that application, you moved to 1122 Center Avenue. That ballot being sent to 1122 Boogie Boogie Avenue is not going to show up at 1122 Center Avenue. So be aware of that for those of you who might have changed residence after having requested a mail-in or absentee ballot. So if you're just joining me, this is Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasiewicz. Again, I'm going to be multitasking here as I normally do. This is the meeting after the meeting where I take about 15 or 20 minutes and just review some of the highlights from today's Carbon County Commissioners meeting. Also talk about some of the issues that are significant of this current week here in the Carbon County Courthouse. I'm going to turn to my right and just look at a couple of my dry erase boards here to see if there's any notable new additions. So what happens here on the dry erase boards you see, right? Let me see if I can do this. You see one right behind me. This is kind of my permanent one. Slight modifications take place. This is like being a weatherman, right? Or a weather person, right? Where you're using the blue screen. So on this dry erase board, you won't see a lot of change because this is where I monitor, I track, I keep persistent ideas, concept, thoughts on this dry erase board. However, on the dry erase board over here, this is normally where I update this every week, every 2 weeks. And what I'll do, I'll put on, let's say, the issue du jour, right? The issue of the day, the issue of the week, big initiatives. And then I'll go ahead and after a week or two, I will take a picture of this dry erase board, print it out, put it in my dry erase board folder, and then I'll think out here on this board the new concept or idea. So here's an example. Let me see if this, right? All right. So, a couple things I have on here. My STAR program, that's the senior tax rebate that I'm a big believer in, giving a tax rebate to seniors who are single family homeowners, primary residents, at least 10 years tax paying experience. Give them a 0.25 mil per year tax rebate unless they're a widow or widower, and that would double. And I'm just doing the calculations of how many individuals might fit into that particular category. So that was the issue I was working here. The other one, if you may have seen, I'm a big believer in home rule. I'm a proponent of a referendum to have a government study commission to look at our existing form of government and to make an assessment if another form of government for county government might be better serving of the residents of Carbon County. And I do believe home rule is the answer to that. However, in order to get to a referendum on home rule, or what's called an optional form of county government, you need to do a government study commission. And there's two ways you get that government study commission commissioned, right? One, you can simply do a vote of the Board of Commissioners. If 2 or 3 of us say, yes, we want a referendum item for the voters to determine if we should have a government study commission, you can do it that way. Or the second way, if you don't have a colleague who sees the value in assessing and evaluating our current form of government and what options may or may not be better, then you can do a petition process. So I had previously put out kind of a conceptual home rule. Let me see if I have it here. Yeah. Here's my home rule packet. I had previously put out a conceptual timeline for home rule. But what I've taken that concept on here, I was working out, well, what is the optimal time to actually go to referendum and work through that process? And right now, what I'm looking at, potentially, it would be a referendum for a vote by the residents of Carbon County on 8 November 2022. And then if the residents would vote for a government study commission, that government study commission of 7, 9, or 11 elected members would have 18 months to make a recommendation and put a ballot proposal of an optional or another form of government on the ballot on 23 April 2024. Again, so if you're interested in a more effective, more efficient, greater representation, more responsive form of government, I really think you should look at home rule and educate yourself on that form of government. So that's that dry erase board. Again, I'm just trying to explain how I utilize this one. Now this one will probably stay up for a couple weeks more, because what I've been working through are the different benefits of home rule, right? In home rule form of government, you can actually have a recall election. So if you have an official an elected officer who is doing something inappropriate, the only way you can remove them from office if there is an impeachment that is done by the legislature, right? That's the only option to remove. We saw that with our own county clerk of courts here just in over the last couple of years. But with home rule in the charter, you can have recall elections built in, term limits. You can actually eliminate row offices and combine, reorganize. You actually separate the day-to-day activities to an administrator versus a board or council members, right? No doubt, greater geographical representation, right? So you can have a 7, 9, or 11 member council. And that is so great because, for example, now we have 2 commissioners from Lehighton and 1 from Jim Thorpe. Now we'd like to say there's no bias involved there when it comes from where you're from. But again, should we simply take that as in faith, or might we create greater representation and have some at-large members and some geographic representation of members? Minority parties in home rule have a greater possibility. So independents, non-affiliated, libertarians, state of the county, right? Have a state of county requirement, just like a state of the union. Interesting, every row office, every department almost has some type of solicitor or legal representation. So you have literally dozens of legal lawyers working for the county, part-time and or in other capacities. You can actually create a legal department per se and actually streamline the number of solicitors. Uniform policies, merit-based promotions, evaluations. Recognize that row offices are co-equal elected officials to the county commissioners. That is, they actually do not have to adhere to county policies, just like the courts do not have to adhere to county policies. County policies are those that were created and approved by the Board of Commissioners. So in home rule, you eliminate those independent operators, row officers, and you bring everyone under one form of government, one set of policies. Enough of home rule tonight, or this afternoon, or this morning, because that wasn't my true focus, but again, it's a passionate subject. The last thing I want to mention, one individual. Let's see, I'm going to type it in here. I attended an Eagle Forum event in New Philadelphia last night. We had a speaker, there was a speaker, and I was invited to listen to Commissioner Joe Gale from Montgomery County. While being a registered Republican, he's definitely an independent operating conservative, both fiscally and social. And Joe is going to be running for governor. That would be starting next year. I expect he'll formally announce his running. But I had a group of about 25 or so folks met with Joe. What an incredible story. So you may want to Google him, check him out on YouTube and his stances. I found his story very compelling. I saw many similarities in his campaign that I faced in my campaign. That is, being attacked both by your own party and by the party of which you weren't a member. He is a Republican. The Republicans worked against him both in the primary, and then when he got the nomination, one of two, they actively worked against him for his general municipal election. So I can truly empathize with the challenge he faced down in Montgomery County. But I loved his story, loved his belief, his values, seemed like a good up and up guy. So I would ask that you go ahead, Google Joe Gale. I'd be curious what you think about him. He does see Black Lives Matter as a terrorist organization. He stood up to his fellow colleagues, two Democratic commissioners who would not approve the release of 50,000 flags to be placed on the tombs of veterans for Memorial Day. That, I think, had national coverage. Joe felt the pandemic wasn't a reason not to be distributing flags and having them placed on the tombs of deceased veterans. So Joe went out, raised the funds with other organizations, and helped place flags that the county, which is required by county code to provide and place flags, would not do. And Joe took it upon himself, in recognition of the selfless sacrifice of our veterans, to lead that effort there in Montgomery County. So again, this is Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasiewicz. If you've just tuned in, this has been the meeting after the meeting, where I take 15 or 20 minutes out of my day on Thursdays to present myself to you, to give you the opportunity to either message me or give me a call, 570-503-6780. I'm going to cut off here. Got a bunch of things to do today. Busy day. Elections just around the corner. And I want to encourage you, if you haven't already, you haven't mailed in that mail-in ballot or absentee, do so. The other option is to drop it off in the drop box, ballot drop box at 76 Susquehanna Street. And if you're gonna, like myself and my family, on Tuesday morning at 7 a.m., we're gonna be at our polling location casting our vote. First and foremost, the president, and then those potential down ballot elections that are taking place. Again, I encourage you highly to get out there and vote. 46,000 registered voters here in Carbon County. The 2016 presidential, we had about a 67% voter turnout. I'm thinking we're going to hit 70% plus of that 46,000, right? Again, so we had about a 67% turnout in 2016. Like to see us push at least 70% in this presidential election, and you can make it happen by going to the polls and vote, or getting that mail-in ballot or absentee in the mail, or dropping it off. And again, have a wonderful day. Carbon County Commissioner Chris Lukasiewicz. This has been the meeting after the meeting. Have a wonderful day.